So I interviewed and I ended up getting a job at Mr. Beast.
What lines will you not cross?
It's a skill you have to practice.
What do you mean by script supervising?
Anyone who proclaims to know what this industry will look like in 6 to 10 years is a liar.
My guest today is the head of production for one of the most iconic YouTubers on the entire platform. She has worked for both Mr. Beast and now for MKBHD. And in this interview, we're going to talk about how she landed jobs at such incredible places, as well as how to push back and have your voice be heard when working for someone who is ultra famous. Stick around. This is one of my favorite episodes to date. So let's get right into it. My first question is kind of the same for everybody, but I want to know how you got involved with MKBHD and with YouTube in general.
So my background is, I started off in traditional media. Actually, I studied psychology and neuroscience in college, and then I was an NBC page right out of college, which was great. I got to work at The Today Show, and I rotated through SNL as well. Then I went to MTV, and at MTV, I really got to make my own job, which was mostly content optimization. So I was working with the Snapchat team and the social teams, doing their paid media. And that was really interesting because it was also kind of a little bit the beginning of when major corporations were starting to catch on that digital media was really important. Like BuzzFeed was really kind of in its heyday, and all of these major media giants were like, we should try to do that too. And so I did that for about a year, and then there was leadership changeover, and they moved me to the YouTube team. So I managed YouTube for MTV and MTV News for about a year. And then, as is so common in traditional media, I got laid off, and I worked in a nonprofit for 6 months. And then I got a job at SiriusXM, where I was hired to be the digital content producer for Politics, Talk, and Comedy. But when I arrived, I said, "Your YouTube page sucks. Can I fix it?" And they were like, "Sure, okay." So over time, I took over management of that channel and ended up growing it. I got us past 1 million subscribers and started to build out a business case as to why they should really invest in YouTube as a platform. I ended up meeting with the CEO, and she agreed. And so she ended up giving me my own team, and I became the head of YouTube for the company. And so I was covering SiriusXM, Pandora, Earwolf, Stitcher, all of these kind of subsidiaries of SiriusXM on YouTube. And then traditional media, again, I got laid off. And
no.
I was looking, and I was just like, I am really tired of working in traditional and in these really big corporations. But although while I was doing all that stuff, I had been producing short films and features on the side, I knew I liked the structure of working for a company, or at least like being employed somewhere versus being freelance. And a headhunter, like a talent producer for Mr. Beast, reached out and offered me an interview. So I interviewed, and I ended up getting a job at Mr. Beast. So I moved to North Carolina the month before my wedding. And
oh my gosh.
I worked at Mr. Beast for about 9 months. And that was great. I mean, it's these big, massive, huge productions and really much more hands-on producing than I'd gotten to do at these other more traditional media companies.
What year was this? Like, when were you at Mr. Beast?
I was there from 2023 to 2024.
Okay. Got you. Understood.
And it was one of those things where I had done a ton of digital production at that point. Celebrities, celebrity games, promotional stuff, because really like a lot of digital content for larger corporations is basically the media circuit for a celebrity doing a promotional campaign. And so this was much more my first time getting to produce original content for YouTube. And years prior, actually, when I was between jobs between MTV and SiriusXM, I had looked for MKBHD. I had looked at the website because he had listed jobs. And they were for an editor and a sound engineer. And I was like, cool, I'm not either of those. And I don't know if you'll ever need someone like me, because not everyone does need a producer. And not everyone needs that extra hand. More often when YouTubers branch out to hire people, they're hiring an editor, right?
Yeah.
They're going to hire an editor, or they're going to hire, someone to do additional graphics. Like, the producer comes once you have enough production going on that you need extra hands for organization and management and outreach and all that other stuff. But when I left Beast, I came back to the city, and a headhunter reached out, and they gave me a list of traditional media companies that they could send me to. And they're like, oh, also this guy, Marquez Brownlee, have you heard of him? And I was like, yes, him. Send me to him, please.
Wait, you said a headhunter reach out to you just randomly, or
Yes.
did you put something out into the internet saying, hey, I'm looking for work?
These are great questions. So yeah, so for both Beast and this headhunter, I had switched my LinkedIn status to available. I had gone from the free version of LinkedIn to LinkedIn Premium.
Okay.
And whenever I've left a company, I tend to do a pretty big wrap-up post where I thank everyone who I worked with, outline my accomplishments, and am very gracious regardless of whatever the experience was. And I think that those things help not only build your network out because you're tagging different people and you're also expressing gratitude, which is always so important, but it also gets you out into the circuit and out into the network.
Yeah.
Luckily, at that point, I mean, I've had, 7 jobs. So even though it's only been 9 years, I've built up a lot of experience, a lot of different companies. And Marquez and I jumped on a call, and I thought that maybe he would want to talk about consulting, or I would, be like a contractor or something. And after we spoke, he called me back one more time and was like, great, okay, so we're going to hire you as a producer. Basically, you'll manage like the calendar and our travel, and we'll go from there. And what was really interesting was that I think truly he initially was just like, we need someone to manage the calendar, and I'll have you be a main channel producer. And then once I was here for about 5 or 6 months, I went to him and I said, because I had really at that point spoken to everyone within the company and gotten to hear what everyone does, but also like where are places where you could use support? Where are things where I could help you, right? Like I'm here, I want to be useful. And I'm good at, building out structures and organizing people and producing. And so over time, I went to Marquez and I said, being a main channel producer, I don't feel comfortable like actively engaging with the other channels and helping them and being proactive because I don't want to overstep my boundaries. Not that anyone here really is super, territorial or protective, but just for me, I feel better knowing that it is within my scope to be doing that and not that I'm stepping out of bounds in any way. And I said, I think I'd be more effective if I moved into a head of production role. And he agreed. And that change made a huge difference because all of a sudden I felt much more empowered to assist with the studio's ideation, giving feedback on their videos. I now caption for the Waveform podcast. I help them with their shorts. I now script supervise for the main channel and I give script feedback. But by changing my title, it really changed how I approached my job. And it meant that I was able to get much more in the weeds across the whole company and assist with the autofocus awards and help with the merch shoot and basically anything that happens within the company. Now I get to have a hand in and ensure that everyone feels like, do you have the resources you need? Are we organized? Are we on top of it? Who do we need to talk to? What information can I get you? Who do I need to connect you with? And that's so much fun. I absolutely love my job now. A lot of this is really building out your role, not only to appeal to your skill set and to learning as much as you can, but also just a lot of these YouTubers are building up something from scratch. Like Marquez has never run a company before. He's never run a production before. He doesn't know what he needs. And I think luckily he met me and was like, feels like she could help us. And I'm very grateful.
I'm a little surprised because managing the calendar and travel is pretty different from what you did before. And it sounds like you were basically doing head of production type work in traditional media and your previous jobs. And then you went to calendar and travel, and then you went back into you grew back into the role that you were doing before. Is that kind of how
Absolutely. I think that's true, but I also think that people underestimate how much calendar plays a role. In terms of Marquez, not only stars in every video on his own channel, but he writes and edits a vast majority of them as well. Well, he writes every video, but he edits quite a lot of them as well. Mm-hmm. Then you also have the art department who's making the different thumbnails and intros they often need him for. You've got all the different ads that he has to be part of. He's part of the studio shoots. He's part of Waveform and autofocus. So there's actually a lot on his plate. And what being in charge of calendar meant was that I basically told Marquez, I was like, I'm going to be annoying. I have to know what is happening all the time. So I'm going to check in with you every morning and every night to know how, where you progressed in your, how far you are in your script, what you're thinking for tomorrow, so that I can then communicate that out to the whole team. The only way this works is if we're all communicating. So what that meant was that I was the most informed person in the studio because I was the one whose job it was to know where Marquez was in his progress on a concept. And so while of course, Marquez is a good communicator, there's only so much communicating he can be doing when he's also writing and editing and shooting all the time. And so having myself be in that role where all of a sudden I'm the one who is communicating outward to most of the team, it meant that there was a lot of really valuable information that I was not only aware of, but then getting to distribute. And so I think that when you hear calendar, it sounds assistant-y. Like it sounds like assistant work. But I kind of knew that that was more so an indication that, okay, there is organizational needs here that aren't being met yet. So I'm going to come in to do that because that's what he is aware he needs help with. And I know that I can then build that out into something more functional. And I think also, luckily, this place is really collaborative. And so once I got my sea legs, they started to see my work, it was like, great, yeah, okay, yeah, absolutely, you can give feedback on scripts and you should be in the room for this thing. And I was like, the more I asked for access, the more they're willing to give me access. And that's not true everywhere. And I think that that is it's a skill you have to practice, especially if you've been turned down at different companies where like you have to ask for access, because if you're lucky, and I've had amazing bosses, if you're lucky, bosses will offer it to you. But especially at a startup, you got to kind of self-advocate. And so like no one's going to bolster you as much as you are.
I love that. Does that have something to do with it being an in-person work environment? Is that something that you advocate for? Is it necessary?
In this particular setting and job, I do think being in person is faster. I think that it allows for a lot more collaboration. I can just walk over to someone's desk and talk to them. I think in production, being hybrid can be really hard because especially with a digital company where things move so quickly, you just might be having a conversation at your desks that then becomes a thing that you're doing very fast. And I will say it super depends on the kind of YouTuber you are or you have or you work for and your job. If you're an editor, I don't think you have to be in person. You know, if you are an audio engineer, if you're a graphic designer, I mean, Michael was one of the first hires of this company. I don't think he and Marquez ever spoke on the phone for the first 3 years, right? Like, I think that if you have a post-production job, you don't always have to be in office. It isn't a necessity. And if you're a producer and most of what you do is pre-pro, maybe you also don't have to be in person all the time. Tell
me about your usual daily life. Like, walk me through what your tasks are, what any given day might look like.
Come in, review a script for Marquez for the video that we're shooting that day, go in and script supervise while we film it.
What do you mean by script supervising?
So Andrew and I both fact check Marquez's scripts and ensure that everything is accurate to whatever kind of reviewer guide we have. And then also occasionally we'll add, hey, I think you might want to mention this here. I think that, you mentioned this over lunch and I think it could be a good addition here. Hey, what about this part of the phone? So we'll give some feedback and fact check it. Then while we're shooting, we are reading along with the script while he's speaking to camera. So we're making sure that he didn't either misquote something or skip a section while he's working. So kind of honestly the same kind of scripts revision you do on a traditional set as well. So making sure that the background is consistent and that he's reading the script appropriately.
Okay.
Because also Marquez doesn't have a teleprompter. He will read it off his phone, memorize it, and then read to camera.
Nice.
Which is an insane skill because it
comes across naturally.
It's a full paragraph, and it's very natural. And I'm like, what about a teleprompter? And he doesn't want one. He does this, and it works.
Okay, fair enough.
So film a video, make sure the set's all set for that. I might work with the design team to ensure that the set is built and ready to go before we go in there. Then shoot, scripts revise. Marquez will either then edit himself or give it off to Mariah. I will go over to the studio team. We might discuss an upcoming video or plan an upcoming shoot. Or alternatively, depending on where they are in their edit process, they'll send me an edit of their video to give feedback on. So I'll give notes on that, about storyline, beats, humor, everything. Send them back to them. I could get a short from the waveform team to add captions to and edit down a bit. I'll check in with Marquez about our schedule for the upcoming days to see what he has on the docket, if anything has changed from what I've laid out recently. I'll communicate that out to the team. And then I work with our head of partnerships to see if we have any ad integrations or sales things that we need to get done. So any additional shots we need to have captured. And then I'll work with Marquez and whoever's editing it to ensure that we get all the B-roll shots we need. So that's also working with the design team and the production teams to make sure that we get all of the B-roll, get that into the video. Then once Marquez finishes or Mariah finishes, he uploads it. I get it into our dubbing software to get it dubbed into multiple languages. Once that's done, I upload that to the channel. And then at the end of each week, Marquez and I sit down and we talk through the next 2 weeks to a month of what's coming up so I can ensure that every channel gets what they need from him. So I'll talk to every channel head and then collaborate and coordinate on, okay, so we have an autofocus shoot. The car comes in this day. The car gets picked up this day. We have a podcast going up. We have a bonus podcast going up. We have a studio intro going. We've got a studio ad read going. Like all of the different pieces. Plus, Marquez is a pro Fujii player, so making sure that we've got that accounted for. Luckily, what I love is that it's a lot of both organization and collaboration, but then also I get to do creative input, and I love that.
Could you walk us through like the life cycle of a product that you guys are working with? For example, you guys have like an unboxing video, or like how soon do you get it before the release in order to like get it out in time? Like the same product might be in a video and then a podcast and then featured in other channels. Like, can you walk us through the life cycle of that?
Totally. I mean, I think that what's funny about this is that it really depends on the product and that company. So like with an iPhone, for example, they flew out for the iPhone event. They don't get the product beforehand. They arrive at the event. They hear the keynote. Marquez will then go back to his hotel room, write his impressions script, which is just the impressions of what the phone's going to be like, film that, edit it himself, same day, get it out the door. While that's happening, while he's maybe in meetings where he's writing a script, the rest of the team is building the set in the hotel room. In the case of this year, the Waveform podcast also went out there with him. So they recorded like a bonus pod on the street, and then they recorded a full-length podcast on site in their studio. And then when Marquez came home, he came back. We got all of the new iPhones after that point. So then he decided what order he wants to review the phones in, because he can't test all of them at the same time. So he takes that phone, he does the unboxing video when he opens all the phones, and then he will test, right? In this case, it was the Air for a week, then release that at embargo, For other ones, I would say it's a little bit shorter because we will get the phones before the announcement. So we might get a phone a week earlier, have the announcement. Marquez will do his impressions video at embargo, and then we'll review the phone a week later.
For people who don't know, embargo is...
Oh, yeah, sorry. Embargo. So you might have noticed that like all of your favorite tech reviewers release the video at the same time. It's because that is the exact time that the company has said, hey, you can talk about our phone. And for a lot of these companies, they might say, hey, you can talk about your first impressions of the phone on Wednesday at 8 a.m. Eastern. So that means no playing with the software, really, that no camera review. This is just what you think of the hardware, what you think of what they've talked about, the promises they've made. And then a full review comes out a week or two later when the second embargo, which is again when they say you're allowed to talk about more about the phone, gets released. So then you can talk about the software, the cameras, the texting, the new AI feature. All of that comes later. So the impressions are more about what's been promised. And then the review is, okay, but let's put it to the test.
I mean, you're a well-oiled machine. Marquez has been doing it for, over a decade now, and your team is so well organized and everything just seems so efficient. How do you keep things fresh? How do you experiment? How do you keep it fun and YouTube-y?
The great thing is that Marquez loves what he does. And I think that with YouTubers who stop loving what they do, you can kind of feel it in the content a bit. So Marquez, I don't think, is capable of making a video about something he's not excited about. And so the great thing is that a lot of that inspiration comes from what is he intrigued by. But at the same time, if it's kind of a slow cycle, it can be tough. What I think is great is that throughout the year, there might be a topic of discussion, right? So back when, before iPhones went to RCS, this green and blue bubble debacle. Why are they green? Why are they blue? And how does it interact? I'm sure that was a topic that he had on our content board for a while. And then once there was a lull or a news cycle that it made sense to do it with, wrote the script and pushed it out. So oftentimes when things are slower, it's the chance for him to think about what kind of video essay, what kind of topic area is interesting him. Even if there are no products to review, what is something that is kind of intriguing in the technology community right now that I can discuss? I think that a huge thing that I do is I consume content not just from the tech niche. Oftentimes I'm looking somewhere else and I'll see a short idea and I think of, oh, here's how we could adapt that and make it make sense for our videos. I think that if you consume too much of your own stuff, you just end up cannibalizing all the same kinds of content, and it gets not only very boring, but it also doesn't allow you to meet anyone new. You can't make any new audience members. You can't find anything interesting or reinvigorating if you're basically doing what like AI does, which is just pulling from the same thing over and over and over again, right? You need to expose yourself to mainstream media, watch some television, watch other content avenues, watch some TikTok if you're on YouTube. Like I think that read a book, having exposure to different kinds of content and different kinds of media can only improve your content. And I think that being exposed to different kinds of ideas and different approaches is massive. I think it's really easy to get shoved into an echo chamber, not only of your own opinion, but of the same kind of content. You see it, YouTube's algorithm struggles with it sometimes, where like if you like one thing, they're like, cool, you'll get 17 of that and nothing else in your recommended. And it can get hard to get pulled out of it. And so I think it's really important to proactively pursue that.
At the office, do you think about the YouTube algorithm a lot? Do you really lean into optimizing every thumbnail to squeeze an extra percentage point of the CTR and that kind of stuff?
No. No and yes. I think that we are all aware of it, and we do, when something doesn't perform as well as we thought it would, we do examine it. And if there is an opportunity where our thumbnail designers have a gap in their schedule, we will often be like, hey, what if we tried a second alt on this? Let's go back to an old video and see if maybe we change around the title and the thumbnail a little bit. There is definitely an eye towards optimization whenever we design anything. It is about how do we convey this message clearly and in the style of MKBHD. And so I don't want to say that we don't care about the algorithm, because we absolutely do, and we do notice when it changes. But we are not optimizing exclusively for the algorithm. I think that that is how you end up with thumbnails that look like everyone else's and titles that might feel borderline clickbaity or topics that feel clickbaity. And I think that what is unfortunate is that you can tell when channels start struggling, you can see that they start to adapt their content or the presentation of their content to what appears to be the algorithm meta. And I know that whenever I see that for a channel that maybe I liked, but I've stopped watching as much, and I can see them starting to do that, it turns me off. Because what it tells me is you're not doing your identity and what you like, you're following the meta. And I can't blame them for it. These channels are no longer just someone in their bedroom. They employ people. Like all of these channels are mini companies. So how can you not try to follow the meta and do whatever you can to keep your ship afloat? But at the same time, I think part of what makes Marquez, and specifically Marquez's niche, so important is his identity is what this channel is. And that is the visual identity. It is his opinions. And so if you as a viewer start to feel that starting to waver, I'm not going to trust you as much. I'm not going to want to engage with your opinion as much, because it feels like you are moving with the way the wind blows. And so I think that you have to be aware of it. It's important to optimize for the consumer and for an audience's eyes. But I think that if you allow the algorithm to lead you as opposed to work with it, it can really have an impact on your creations.
It just sounds like brand trust, like even more than his personality, but like the trust people have in him and your brand is like one of the biggest things at MKBHD. Having
your audience's trust and their belief in you is a huge part of it. And I think that can get very muddy when you, like Marquez has done kind of an incredible thing where he has built up a lot of trust without making his identity the channel. So I think what can be very hard is that people have a channel based around story times or who they are as a person or their day-to-day life or their job or whatever it is. And then if that job changes or they change as a person a little bit, or, now they're a parent as opposed to just like a teenager in their room, then the audience is like, you've changed. And it's like, yeah, it's been 15 years. I hope I've changed. But like with what Marquez does, you care about his opinion, but I don't think anyone would be like, oh, I know Marquez's favorite breakfast food.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like they say to like lean into your personality, and he actually he is very good at revealing a very small sliver of his personality, but there's so much of his personal life that probably nobody knows. I certainly don't know. I've been a fan for 10 years.
I was just wondering if this was because of like the nature of the content is like a review channel as opposed to what everyone else is doing.
I think that's probably part of it for sure, though I think you see like a Mr. Who's the Boss who makes content about his home and his kitchen, and I think he did a really like amazing drone show for his wedding. Like that there are also ways to, even as a reviewer, to bring your personal life into the content if you want to. And I think that is possibly a slope that can be slippery, where you don't realize how much of your life you're putting out and how much of it you're exposing people's opinions and thoughts and insights. But I think that this ability to say, like, who else is a great example? Like Drew Gooden and Danny Gonzalez, two people who I love watching, and I feel like I know a little bit about them, but not that much. You have to make that decision actively. Otherwise, I think it's very easy for it to slide.
Being a review channel, you must have a very unique relationship with brand partners and sponsors compared to most of the YouTube industry. Where are your guidelines? Like, where are you very firm? What lines will you not cross? How do you maintain strong relationships while also maintaining that trust with the viewer that you're not getting paid off or anything like that?
I don't decide our ad reads, though I do help with them. I will say that as a company, I think that our consumer trust is first and foremost. So for the main channel especially, it's about no phone company can sponsor us, no network can sponsor us, right? Like, it can't be anything that we might review that product. For the podcast, it can be a little bit different because ad reads are just different in that medium. But I would say that for the main channel, especially in the past year, we've really focused on our really big brand partnerships, where Bridge and dbrand have been channel sponsors and channel partners for years and years and years. And they're products we really believe in, and they are teams that we work well with and who we trust, and they trust us. And I think that has really been the primary focus of what we want to be promoting, is things that we believe in and we trust, so that you can believe and trust us too.
Yeah, dbrand and Ridge are interesting ones because they're much bigger than just a single individual video sponsor, which I think a lot of people, especially in our audience and even in our network, they deal with sponsors on an individual level. Do you have any insight about how to have those conversations, bigger conversations, like, hey, let's do a bigger brand deal than just a single video?
I mean, I think it's important to know what you or your creator is open to, because I think that part of the point I was making earlier about, like, podcasts are a medium where ad reads are like commercials. So even though the podcaster hopefully believes in and is emphasizing that they like it, you know it's an ad read. And I think that with larger campaigns, when you get products from YouTubers or even honestly like TikTokers, there's been this very interesting shift in terms of like the elasticity of, is this just a thing you like or is this an ad read? I think that that can get slippery for some audience members. But I think that when it comes to approaching an outside company, big thing is, what do you want out of it? And what do they want out of it? We've had people come to us with full campaigns that we then have to say, we are not ready or prepared to give you as much as you want to have us do. I think that if you go to a company that you believe in, laying out, here's what we're willing to do for you, here's the price range we're thinking of, are all really important. But I think most important is building up that relationship, right? If you like that product, maybe you mentioned the product before you're sponsored by it as just an aside, reach out, show, hey, I use this, I want to be a part of it, let's start talking. I think also being aware of how much your audience and platform is worth, right? So a company might be like, yeah, we'll absolutely do a campaign with you. And, that'll be like 3 YouTube videos, 2 Instagram feed posts, 1 asset for our content feed, and then a commercial. But you're getting paid the amount for those 2 ad spots and not for everything else. And I think it's really important to be aware of the worth that you're offering, because you're offering a lot. And especially if you associate, that I just mentioned, 6 different points of contact between you and the company. I think it's important to be aware of how much your audience is going to associate you with that brand. If you do a larger campaign, your identity is going to be tied to that company for at least a little bit. So you got to make sure that you believe in the product, trust the company, and trust that it'll be applied in ways that you want it to be, and not all of a sudden you're like on a billboard in New York City and you didn't agree to that.
Right.
I just think it's, that makes it sound like this is all very nefarious, but I think it's important to know on both sides of the equation what's being asked of you and what you're willing to deliver. And I think to build up good relationships between you and whatever partnerships means that, there's channels that have been sponsored by Audible for 6 years. Like, the best kind of sponsor is one that you believe in, they believe in you, and you've got a good rapport.
It's been a great interview, by the way. Thank you very much. This is ultimately like the goal of the podcast, is to have like the people who often don't get put on camera, because there's so much knowledge shared. There's so much knowledge behind the scenes. And having somebody like yourself be able to share that with people is so valuable. Every minute is so valuable.
Thank you. I mean, I think that like also this is an industry that like didn't have as many behind the scenes people until like, I'm going to exclude like a BuzzFeed. But like most independent creators didn't have huge teams until pretty recently. Like
since COVID, yeah. I agree.
And especially when every channel is effectively its own little startup, you have so many people who are starting this for the first time from scratch with no infrastructure. And so I think that there's going to be a really wide range of experiences, and a lot of people who are like, how do I get in? And a lot of creators who are like, how do I find someone good? I've got these people like approaching me from random Instagram handles, but I have no idea if they know what they're doing. So it does become a referral game, or in my very, very lucky case, a headhunter game. But that I think is pretty rare. And so I think that having ways to connect talented people with creators is a big deal, especially for someone like me, where I make stuff myself. I mean, I do make stuff myself, but like I've never wanted to be a YouTuber myself.
Right.
And I think a lot of
Right.
people feel like, well, I'll be a YouTuber and then people will see my stuff and they'll reach out to me and then I can work for one. And that is a way in, but not everyone wants to do that. So it's
Hmm.
important to realize that there are ways in that aren't that. It's so different now than it was when I started. TikTok didn't exist. Snapchat was barely, didn't have Discover yet. Like, I think that that's the biggest thing is that these platforms are all evolving and changing so much. And the way that traditional media reacts to them, like when I started in YouTube, Netflix couldn't be nominated for Emmys or Academy Awards because it was a
Hmm.
streaming service. It didn't count as either of those things. And so I think that's the big thing is that anyone who proclaims to know what this industry will look like in 6 to 10 years is a liar. They don't.
Right.
It's like you never know what the next player is going to be. Gen Z right now is, or Gen Alpha even, are like the cool young up and comers, but the next generation will be like, oh my God, can you believe they used to just scroll on like a vertical feed? That's crazy. Like, I think that everyone is a little bit cringy to the people before them. And so I think that's what's going to be interesting is like, okay, is it even faster, more stimulation, more intensity? Is it going to be kind of a rejection of that? And people, only use, I don't know, headsets or sunglasses? Is it going to be people turning back to books? Like doubt that. But I think that the bigger point I'm making is I have no idea what this industry will look like in a few years. My hope and my belief is that YouTube will continue to become more and more respected as people realize the level of production and the level of skill that's being put into all of these channels and into all of this work and the amount of eyeballs that are being given to these non-traditional platforms, which right now I think a lot of traditional media sees as a form of marketing versus a platform for content. Because the difference with YouTube and any other places, there's no barrier to entry. And a lot of traditional media loves a gatekeeper. And so I think
Right.
that can be,
So true.
it'll be like, right? I mean, and I think that'll be an interesting evolution, right? Is as you have the Good Mythical Mornings and the Hot Ones and the Michelle Carres advocating for mainstream recognition, if more
Hmm.
and more of that will grow until all of a sudden it is this extremely flat field where it's all just entertainment or it's all just content. And I think that there's a lot of discussion to be had about if that's a good or a bad thing. Should content and art be considered the same thing? Is a tough conversation, but I think it is interesting and it's a thing we're going to grapple with, especially as AI as AI develops and there's more and more ways to make art more and more easily. The
Hmm.
definition of what is art will change, and what is content and what is a creator are all going to evolve.
It's funny, like YouTube is tough to talk about because it's like so all encompassing. Like it does encompass art, it encompasses content.
Absolutely.
So I find it hard to talk about, but the way that you just summarized it was very concise. One of the most concise ways I think I've ever heard. Okay, Harper, thank you so much for being on the show. I asked the same question to end it off with everybody. Who is a creator that's on your radar that you're really liking right now?
Oh wow, what a great Carter PCs. He's a tech creator. He's not that up and coming. He's almost 2 million subscribers, but he is a shorts creator. And I love his stuff. I watch basically all of it. He's a great blend of comedy and tech content that I really, really enjoy. And I think that's a lot of fun. So I really, from the tech side of things, I enjoy him. And then in terms of a video essayist who I think is really talented, Siobhan Breer Aguilar, she's got about 70,000 subscribers and she does these deep dives into novels from a feminist lens that I really think is a kind of cool artistic breakdown of books, and I really enjoy that. On my less like intellectual side, I also really enjoy Celebrity Memoir Book Club, which I believe is now retitled as Good Noticings. Both are just great insight into books or perspectives that I hadn't thought about before. So I really enjoy both.
Well, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sharing all the knowledge that you have.
Thank you guys. This is really fun. I always enjoy when people get to talk more about YouTube. I feel like so often people ask me my job and I say YouTube and they're either very excited or very bored by that answer. And then I get very excitedly just like spew information or joy at
Yeah.
them and they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I get it. So it's great to talk to people who are also interested in it. And this is a cool idea. This is a really great way to get a lot of perspectives and voices on the industry out there.
Okay, thank you very much for watching or listening to this episode. If you want to hear more from the MKBHD workforce, I actually interviewed Eric Villa, who is the head of production for The Studio, which is MKBHD's behind the scenes channel. So you can check that out by clicking the top line of the description. If you're new here, think about subscribing or leaving a review. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.